What's going on, everybody? This is Joe.
And Amy.
And we are back with the continuation of our review of Varia. We have the 7 starter decks, if you will, or the original decks of the main characters for the game. We were gifted these by the creators, by Guildhouse Games, so we thank them for these, and they gave us these in order for us to review them. If you missed the first video, it's where we gave our first impressions and reviewed the Shadow Assassin deck, so please feel free to check the iCard up in the top right-hand corner. That should be popping up any second now. That will send you to the entire playlist, and this is the second video. So last time, like I said, we did Shadow Assassin. This time we are doing Death Pirate. Now, if you did miss the first video, like I said, the Shadow Assassin deck was one of mine. The Death Pirate deck is one of Amy's. So Amy, why don't you grab that deck, and same as I did with the Shadow Assassin, let's see if you can open this thing. Because again, this was shipped to us, so it needs to be shipped well, or packaged well, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's something to be said about it being easy enough to open, but if it's falling apart in transit, that's a bad thing.
Exactly. And that's probably, if I had to choose between the two, I'd much rather make sure that there's no damage to the product as opposed to it taking a while to open. Did you do it? Mm-hmm. Oh, man, I needed to use scissors. All right, Amy's 1-0 on this one, folks.
Well, I have fingernails, so...
Yeah, that's true.
Ugh. Even that's tight.
You can push that off to the side if you want. So, there is the Death Pirate deck. We've already talked about the outside art on these boxes, the main art, but if you recall, Amy, why don't you flip it over to the back? Because there's separate art on the backs.
Wow, very different art.
Yes. So, I will read what it says there, because again, they all say something similar, except it seems that the last line is different on all of them, so I'll read the whole thing.
And then, of course, the stuff at the bottom is different. Well, not everything at the bottom. But it tells you how long it takes, it tells you how many players, it tells you the age. But this is really what changes from deck to deck, is the difficulty level.
And the colors, of course,
right,
that are used to represent it. So, it says, get ready for the fight of your life. Forget everything you know about trading card games. When playing Varia, there aren't any minions to protect you or walls to hide behind. Instead, you raise the shield. You cast the spell, you swing for the win with your weapon of choice. If you want to foil your enemy's plans, you'll have to cause that mayhem yourself. So again, that last thing about foiling plans and mayhem is unique to the pirate deck. So Amy, continuing your effort to open these boxes, go ahead and open the top.
Okay.
As we saw with the Shadow Assassin deck, these are very tightly packed, which is, again, a good thing. It fits a lot into the space.
And I will say the sweatiness of my fingers is not helping with the glossiness of this.
Yes.
I cannot slide this out.
Yeah, it's not easy. I can't. All right, so do you want some help?
Maybe, because I'm afraid of scratching the heck out of this.
I ended up using my nail to, like, pop
Maybe if I kind of squeeze the edges a bit. No. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I can help you out. Let me see if I can get it on camera. Again, I just kind of used my nail and popped it like that.
Yeah, I left a score mark in there with my fingernail, and I still couldn't move it. So I didn't really want to continue with that.
Yeah, it's not easy. Again, I wouldn't necessarily consider that a complaint just because of all that they pack into the deck itself.
Right.
So, or the box itself. So, yeah.
There's a lot here.
Yeah, so we'll try to keep it in order as best we can. Obviously, we've seen the bifold there, which lists all of the cards.
Yeah.
Feel free
you guys see that?
to scan that QR code, or you can check the description for a link to learn how to play this game. But yeah, it lists all the cards and stuff. That's fine. We're going to be going through it. But it's also got the art on there, but we'll see that art in 2 seconds when we look at that first card.
And she appears to be the same woman who's on the box,
correct,
although it is a different art.
Yeah, of course. Which again is what we learned with the Shadow Assassin deck, is that it's kind of different artists interpreting the same character, it seems. Okay, so if we are looking at our first card, it's Skeletal Strike. So I think that's really cool. I actually like the sword there is like an energy sword that looks really cool.
Yeah.
It's a magical attack death, which is it's pretty awesome.
I like how the energy of the sword kind of lights the skeletalness of the hand.
Yeah.
Like maybe the hand looks like a normal hand, but when lit by the light of the sword, you see the skeleton sort of through the skin of the hand.
Okay. Well, and again, as we discussed when looking at the front of the box last time, it does appear that half of her face is skeletal. So it's cool
it's just that I don't know. I guess
I don't know. At least a portion of her face is skeletal. So it seems like that would make sense that you would have something manipulating her hand enough that you would see this kind of skeletal structure then of her hand, even as Amy says, if it would otherwise normally look like a regular skin and bones hand. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what's next?
I don't know that I have much else to say about this art, though.
Yeah.
I will say that the epaulets here look very different from the ones on the cover, and I cannot appreciate it. Sorry about it.
All right, fair enough. So we'll see. There might be more than one. Yeah, there's more than one skeletal stroke, which is just fine.
There are
skeletal strike, excuse me. There is the jeering ploy. She looks awesome here.
Yeah.
Kind of standing over her, I don't know what the prey? Prey is probably the word that I'm looking for. A physical persuasion card. I like that. Very, very cool. Okay.
All right. Yeah, the art here, I would say, pretty basic, pretty much what you'd expect a pirate to look like. Pretty cliche.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair. I like it.
Yeah. Still good.
Yeah.
The sunset's beautiful.
Yeah, behind her.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the way they captured the light of the sun over here in the corner, very nice.
Yeah.
The glow around it, especially on the sleeve and the hand here.
Okay, sure.
Very nice. Very well done.
Good use
and
of
this
light.
sort of swish.
From the sword.
Yes.
Sure.
But you can really see it sort of in the sunlight.
Yes.
Really to give it that movement.
Right. It's like, because the sword would be reflecting the sunlight, so it's like that's what it leaves behind.
Right. It's like
Kinda
it's like a trail. Yeah.
Really cool. Ooh, we have Luck Drinker. So maybe that's the name of the sword?
Maybe.
That's really cool. Because it does look like, the sword is kind of activating and maybe she's like pulling it back a little.
Yeah.
To like drink the luck. Yeah. That's really cool.
Interesting. It's kind of hard to tell what this stuff is over here. Like, it looks like a man's head.
Behind a shield, maybe?
Yeah, but it's kind of like weirdly positioned. Almost like he's laying down.
Oh, I don't know. I just thought he was like trying to hide behind the shield. But
it's very weird.
Can't quite tell. All right.
But again, the use of light in here is great.
Yeah.
Really great.
It's like a shimmering shield. Because again, that it seems to be that as the block. And in fact, it may even be that the shield is casting a larger shield up and around.
Yeah.
Even though it's like a little buckler shield down there that. Mm-hmm. But that is the block that she's trying to overtake. So that's really cool.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of those.
Yeah.
Oh.
Skullduggery. What a great name for a card.
What a great name for a pirate card.
Physical piracy. So the flavor text on this card says, sometimes you just need to roll the dice, which is cool because, pirates known for gambling, they got to do something on the ship when they're waiting around for, come across other pirates or other ships to steal things from, but also because this game prides itself on the fact that it focuses pretty heavily on the dice mechanics. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty good. I like that.
Here it's kind of interesting. I like what her clothes look like in this picture. I feel like that's very realistic compared to some of these other ones that we've seen, where the blouse is sort of like askew on the top, kind of maybe showing a bit more than it ought to be, but, kind of flowy down at the bottom. Like, that's what a pirate blouse would look like, and that's really how it would be fitting as she is fighting. Right. I mean, hate depictions of battle where people's clothes look like they're on a mannequin.
Oh, yeah.
And the person is fighting.
Sure.
It's like, that is not what your clothes would look like if you were actually in a battle.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be like wearing an evening gown, while...
Well, it's not even about the type of clothes that they're wearing so much as it is about it, the lay of the clothing conveying movement.
Right. Okay, and there was only one skullduggery because then we have, family's protection. So this very much, to me, just by glancing at it before even reading the flavor text, looks like this is her family based on the name of the card, and it looks like they are ghosts or spirits of some kind.
All dead.
Also, notably, as we saw with the Shadow Assassin deck, it seems that 5 is the upper bound of cost, which is what is depicted in the top left-hand corner of the card, descending downward. And so it seems that 5 is like that maximum number for the cost, and that's pretty good. That to me at least would indicate, if it costs that much and is a much higher cost than everything else, that the effect of this card would probably be very good. This is a magical block death, and the flavor text says, "Rose in your darkest hours, cleave to this heirloom and remember these words. You are never alone." Which, again, to me, even though Rose could be the past tense of rise, I believe it just means that her name is Rose.
Yeah.
Because the way that quote is used seems to be that they are talking to her or referring to her in that presence. And so that's really cool. Family's protection. She's never alone. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's very cool. And it really kind of conveys that sort of, Pirates of the Caribbean vibe that we talked about initially when we saw the cover of this box.
Yes.
I love the background here, the intricacies of that ship.
Yeah.
The haziness of the clouds.
Okay.
It very much gives a sort of mysterious at-sea vibe.
Okay. And are they on a shore right here? It looks like, as opposed to like on the deck of another ship?
Yes, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it appears that the ship is sort of parked on shore here.
Moored, I think, would be the term.
I'm not familiar with sailing terms, but
nautical terminology.
but their ship is here and they're on the shore now.
Yeah.
And I would love to learn more about the capabilities of these ghosts.
Sure.
Like what they're actually able to do, their incorporealness compared to like their corporealness, like
Sure.
like what they're actually able to affect physically
Sure.
in the world that we're in with this.
I like that. Okay.
Okay, there are 2 of those.
Ooh. We have Drowning Dirge. This art is awesome looking.
Yeah,
wow.
I'm just going to tilt it slightly forward so I'm not getting as much of a glare on that
looks
for
great.
you guys.
Yeah. Drowning Dirge. Well, I mean, first of all, the colors are fantastic.
Yes. Again, I'm going to reference contrast with something like this. The deep blacks, the bright reds, the sort of glimmering greens, the purples in the background. I mean, this is a way to make art stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the brightness of the face. Again, when you want to bring somebody's eye to a character's face, you gotta make a light source shine on the face, or you've got to have objects that point to the face, and really draw people's eye there. And I think this does a great job of that, despite the fact that there's so many other things to look at here.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got like 2 ghostly or spirit pirates here, and yet, like you said, I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of anguish on that face there. So it's good that you would kind of have that focus being brought to that brightened face.
Yeah, and I feel like that the detail that they gave the face is very almost photographic. It's so realistic, and I really love that being paired with the fantasy and the whimsicalness almost of these skeleton ghosts. I think they did a great job of pairing it so that it works. Because I think sometimes in arts like this, for fantasy properties, they really try hard to kind of marry those two things, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think it really does work with this.
Yeah. I also want to say, because I've seen it a bunch of times now with this deck, shout outs to the border. I just love the colors on that border and the way that they blend. I wanted to say bleed, but that's not the right terminology. I think blend.
Like an ombre kind of.
It's so cool. I mean, that's my personal preference of colors with, purple into blue like that.
But it's beautiful. And gorgeous. I think that they did a good job of picking that color for this deck, because it seems like the color palettes of the arts stand out against it nicely. Yeah. And that's really what you want from a border. You don't want the border blending in, because then what's the point of having it in the first place?
Sure. So yeah, shout outs to that. I like that a lot. Mm-hmm. So there are a couple of drowning dirges, followed by... Wow. Oh, this is a 6-coster.
Oh my gosh. That is gorgeous.
Very realistic looking art.
Oh my god, that could be a photograph.
And I was just going to say that. Absolutely, it could be a photo. And to be fair, based on the name of the card, Charm, it makes sense. You're charmed by that art the second you see it. Absolutely. You know why? This arm pointing right to her face. Okay, like you were saying.
And she's holding her face, sort of...
brushing it on the side like that.
Yeah, sort of giving... like a gentleness, a warmth, and then the way the sunlight kind of comes off of her head,
like a halo
all around it.
Sure.
And that rose, like, this is perfect. This is perfect.
And to look at the whole thing, it's great because you get to see. First of all, I was immediately proven wrong in the same deck, because this is a 6-cost. And I just mentioned that 5 seemed to be the upper bound of cost. So immediately proven wrong. Thanks, deck. Appreciate it. But it is a physical persuasion. And again, for charm, that makes sense. And the flavor text says, "For me, you shouldn't have." And I feel like that's exactly how she's saying that. Where like if you were watching this in like a television show or a movie or like visual media of some kind, you'd know as the viewer, you're sitting there going, "Oh my God, are you buying this?" And yet the recipient of that phrase is going, "Yes, of course it was for you." Like they're just fully falling for it or whatever. We also find out that, oh, sorry, go ahead. You wanted to say something.
On that same point, please. I think it's interesting to look at her face.
Yeah.
This isn't the face of a bad actress. Yeah. This is a face that actually conveys a real feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that feeling could be interpreted different ways depending on who you are or the situation that it's in. But yeah, the realisticness of this face and sort of the light on the hair and just the softness of it all, I think really, really does convey that charm. It doesn't feel like, oh, I put a spell on you and you're doing what I want you to do.
Yeah, this art's incredible.
It feels like this woman is charming. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I will also say, to further cement our learning of the lore and figuring things out, we now know her full name is Rose Redcoat Alvarez.
Okay.
So there you go. Now we know.
But she's not wearing a red coat.
She was in the
she's
other
wearing
arts.
Armor.
Right now she's wearing armor, but she, I guess, went on the ship because here she seems to be on the shore. But it also looks like, if you look, there's the sword on the ground behind her and the shield on the ground behind her. And I guess if she's attempting to charm someone, she very well may leave those things behind in order to show that she's not a threat, but she's still a threat because she's able to charm your pants off. No pun intended, not to be, inappropriate about it, because that's not what I'm talking about. But just in general, like, she's able to charm you so well that she doesn't need her weapons because she is her own weapon through persuasion or influence.
Yeah.
At that point.
I will say with this rose, it's a bit odd. There's a rose bush next to her in the picture. That the rose is clearly from. But the picture of the rose doesn't show a stem on this rose. If you look, it shows roots.
Okay.
And that's very odd to me because then I guess the rose is growing like directly out of the ground virtually.
Or she got one like really close to the bottom. I guess.
So I guess her like hand is covering the stem part. It's very odd.
Yeah, very weird.
But the rest of it is to die for. Love it.
Very cool. Ooh, speaking of Red Coat, we have Red Coat's Revenge, and there is her red coat. So yeah, I like. I can't exactly tell what's going on in the background there. Is there more than one? There is not. Okay.
I love that they used the term red coat, and that they actually gave her a red coat, because obviously it's pretty typical for stereotypical pirates to be associated with English culture, perhaps.
Sure.
And of course, red coats. Were very heavily associated with that culture, as red was the uniform color of the English soldiers during the Revolutionary War.
So I will say, I tried to look a little bit closer, and I think what I can see here is it looks like it is now a spiritual ship as well in the background. Like a spiritual pirate ship shooting a spiritual cannon.
Yeah.
Cannonball, in this case, out, which is really awesome. I like that a lot. And it shows, again, she doesn't necessarily even need to be on her own ship. She's got death magic. So, she can bring back her ancestors. She can bring back a whole ship, maybe with her ancestors on it. Who knows? Being able to blast cannonballs, even, and again, as Amy mentioned, trying to figure out the corporeality or lack thereof of the subjects. I would assume if you're shooting a cannonball, it's going to hit something and not just like go through it and scare you.
Right. Even though it's like magical like this, it's not. It's not a ghost cannonball that just like goes through something.
Right.
And, oh, that's so scary. It looks like she's holding a revolver in this hand.
Makes sense.
That appears to have just been shot, because there's like the color of an explosion here and then like some smoke coming off of it.
Sure.
So it seems that she's just shot it, which is interesting because the stance that she is standing and the way in which she is holding that doesn't look like she's shooting anything.
Okay.
To me. This here, I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
Could be more explosions, or sometimes spirits are depicted as like a will-o-wisp is like a fire spirit, like a little ball of fire or something. That's what it makes me think of.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just feels like it's just trying to be a light source for this picture. But I just feel like it doesn't necessarily have a place. Like maybe I'm missing what the story is there with that. Yeah,
it's I'm not sure. I will say the flavor text here says, "Fire at will. If it moves, see that it never does so again."
Nice.
Which is awesome.
Love it.
Yes. Then we have Ensa's Prayer. So, okay, let's see, based on our Shadow Assassin deck, this to me looks like the same two characters that we saw on that card that we kind of discussed for a while from the Shadow Assassin deck.
Absolutely.
Which I had surmised might have been kind of the origin story for our Shadow Assassin.
Okay.
But I also said towards the end of that video that I was unsure of that, because it seemed like that was the first card that led us into cards that didn't really conform as much with the rest of the deck. It was just kind of more generic stuff that could have really gone in any deck. And so maybe these are just these two characters, and we're going to see them on a lot of different cards. So I'll be curious to see if the card after Ensa's Prayer is more pirate-based cards or more generic to indicate whether or not that is they're specific to individual decks, because again, I believe that these are the same two characters we saw in that Shadow Assassin
Absolutely. So this here appears to be Ensa.
Yeah.
Now, in the other card that we saw of these two characters, the god was up higher, not in this sort of descending stance, and she or he was holding this sword horizontally in front of them. And now the god or goddess is down here sort of descending in a much more warm, loving sort of position with light shining down. And the sword has appeared in front of this character, Ensa.
Yeah. And it seems like the light is shining on the blade, off of the blade, whatever you want to call it.
And onto her as well.
I will agree that I remember the god or goddess figure holding a weapon. I'm obviously not certain that it's this sword, but it would make the most sense. Well, that's fine. I mean, it would make the most sense. It's actually kind of interesting to me then that I'm curious in which order those two cards go in a story. Is the god coming down to Ensa, who is praying with her sword, and then the god picks up the sword and holds it aloft to say, like, this is now a more significant weapon because you, Ensa, wielded it? Or did the god come down and say to Ensa, here is this weapon, use it well?
Yeah, I took it as the second thing. Like, this is a holy weapon that the god is bestowing upon Ensa, who is praying for the ability to defeat someone in battle.
Well, so let's see what the flavor text says. It says, kneeling amidst her sister's work, Ensa ensured the extermination would not become an extinction. This is a quote from A History of House Ichval, Chapter 8, Verse 18. So, interesting because, again, the flavor text is from the History of House Ichval, which is the same as it was on the other card. I don't remember the chapter and verse of the other one, but I feel like it might have been Chapter 8, Verse 11. And this is verse 18.
Okay.
So it's possible that it is later as you surmised, but I don't recall. I'm not exactly sure on that. But still very cool to get to see kind of the continuation of these. Maybe once we're done with all of these, we'll have a number of cards that depict this story, and we can kind of put them together and see in total what that story entails. Very, very cool. So behind Ensa's prayer, we have an arcane blast.
Ooh, I love the art here.
Yeah, me too. I love the like purple colors with like the darker skin but the white hair. Very, very cool.
And how they were really able to, I mean, this aspect of the light here is very white, and then it becomes magenta very quickly. There's not a lot of blending here from one color to another.
Right.
But the light that's shining on her or him is not white light. It's magenta light. And I love that because that's not something you typically see.
Okay.
It's not... It's very atypical for me to see anything where the color of the light that's shining on an object or a person is actually magenta in color. That's not really a thing that you see. So that's very cool how they were able to capture that in such an eloquent way.
And it's funny. I mean, maybe it's from watching too much Dragon Ball Z as a kid, but to me, looking at this art, it looks like this is the stance of someone blocking that type of a blast. And yet, based on the name of the card, plus the fact that it is a physical attack arcane card, it seems like the art is attempting to depict that it is this person that is producing that blast.
The light is coming out of the hands.
So that's interesting to me because, again, just from initial glance, it seems to me that this is visually, again, at first glance, more of a block than a blast itself. But I don't know, maybe I guess you could argue that the elbows wouldn't be locked at that point if it was a block, because you'd want a little bit more give in your arms to be able to block that kind of a thing.
That's a good point.
Hey,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Because you'd break your arms otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm looking at the sort of intricacies of what is tied on the arms here to kind of like clue me into what the culture is of this person a bit.
Sure.
I see what appears to be a paw print.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of animal they're trying to convey it's associated with because it looks very basic because that's obviously not what they're focusing on in this picture. And there are some other sort of beady type gadgets sort of hanging. But I'm looking a lot at these earrings that look very sort of African in nature to me. I'm thinking like African or sort of Persian, perhaps.
Okay.
Looking to me. The armor, on the other hand, doesn't really convey that. The armor, there's a lot of white, almost looks as though it's painted. She's wearing a cape, which absolutely says to me that she's a royal soldier. Okay. Because a cape isn't actually very utilitarian in battle. Okay. But it's really part of a uniform.
Right.
So that really says to me that a royal guard or soldier is what we're looking at here.
Okay. I would also point out, just because of what we were talking about previously with Ensa's Prayer, it does seem like this is not a card that is associated with the Death Pirate deck as much as it is just a generic physical attack card. So it does seem like, maybe the Ensa's, the cards with those characters, the God and the kind of Supplicant, are the indication of the fact that you're moving from the main deck to kind of the more generic cards to go along with the deck there.
Yeah.
So but behind Arcane Blast, let's see. We have an Aimed Edge. So again, we actually saw this card last time. So this is absolutely generic. And again, as I believe, surmised from the Shadow Assassin deck, these are cards that are interchangeable and can go in any of the decks because they're just cards that need to do those different kinds of abilities.
Right. I will point out the sort of interestingness of the hairstyle of this character.
Up in a bun like that?
And this portion of his head is shaved.
Sure.
I think that's probably a marker of his race or class or the specific group that he is associated with. So if he's like, say he is an assassin or something, his specific group of assassins probably all have similar hairstyles or something like that.
That's a good point.
That's what I would figure, because it's probably pretty atypical for sort of medieval-ish character to have a hairstyle of that nature.
Interesting. Okay. I will say I haven't seen it in a while, so if I'm misspeaking, please don't crucify me. Please feel free to correct me, though. I'm always welcome to be corrected. It reminds me a lot of Sokka from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It just, the hairstyle-wise, it looks a lot like... And it's very pertinent that I bring that up now because it is... it was trending the other day. Yep, that fell. That's fine. It was trending the other day because it is available now to watch on Netflix. You gotta just leave it. We knew that stuff might fall. If it falls, that's fine. That's life.
Well, I also think it's kind of monk-like, perhaps. So maybe, maybe if you want to go the D&D route, maybe he's a bit of like a shadow monk, sort of type guy.
I'm okay with that. That's definitely what my. I appreciate shadow monks. Shout out. But again, we've seen this card before, so.
So let's keep it moving. Yeah. Oh, I just now noticed. It almost looks like they're in a sort of Tudor-style building here, which is very interesting to me. Like a timber frame building with sort of a plaster wall.
Okay. Well, if you recall, this is the inn or the tavern or whatever.
Yeah, it's just that that style of a home is probably a bit later than we would assume a lot of these characters are from, but it's interesting to sort of see those things incorporated for sure.
Okay. Then we have Backflip again. We saw this card earlier as well. Them fighting in front of this wheat field. So yeah, another generic card that goes into multiple decks. Very nice.
I wanted to mention these sort of like reflections that we're seeing here. Again, like I wish I knew what was happening here a bit more. I feel like the composition of this really cuts off a lot of information.
Okay.
On the edges that I wish we had.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's something I should want or something I shouldn't want. Like, maybe the story gives you that information instead of the art doing it. Do you know?
Another Backflip.
Okay, we've got two of those.
A Twin Strokes. So this is, again, presumably because of where it is in the deck, another generic card, or like card that could go in any deck, but it is new. We have not seen this one yet, and the art's really cool.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It really, let me just see if there's a second one here. There is. It really says to me that this person is a god.
Oh, okay.
Or a demon.
Oh.
Of some kind. The outfit
Interesting.
is very much says to me like how an ancient Greek or Roman goddess might, like what she might be wearing.
Okay.
But I love the sort of style of this, the very sort of sketchy, wavy lines that they used in this to really give it, but then also the very stark straight lines on her body.
Okay.
Really to give it a lot of fierceness. They really conveyed that very well. Yeah, I mean, this is just gorgeous. Really is. The huge slash across her stomach.
Oh, God.
To kind of show that maybe that's the reason why she's so furious at the moment and about to come down with her two swords.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. The shadow on her legs here. Just great.
Yeah, and she's barefoot, too.
Yeah, and the fact that her hair is so wisping in the in the wind, and that it's so white. Again, to draw your eye to this area.
Okay.
Very, very cool. I can't say enough good things about this art. I really can't.
Good. You like it better than the charm art? They're very different.
I do.
Wow, okay. I don't know
Considerably.
I don't know that I would go that far, but obviously they're both great. That's not, not putting down either of them. I would lean more towards charm personally, but there you go. Then we have kind of our two favorite arts that we've seen so far in this deck. Okay. Another Windshank. Again, these colors just stood out to me so much.
Yeah.
Because they just seem so different. So there you go. Interesting.
And beautiful. I mean, especially like comparing these two, the difference there is like so stark. I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah, that's fair.
The colors, the brightness of the colors that you see in the Windshank versus this. I mean, this really to me feels like an ancient time period because we're seeing colors sort of the way that colors are more frequently in our popular culture today, conveying ancient things. Does that make sense? Like, absolutely. Like, think of the movie 300. the coloration of it is this. It's not this.
Of course.
You know? And there has also been research to suggest that that the cones in our eyes were not as developed back then to be able to see colors in this way. Way back then. So almost like to say that this is the way the world actually looked back then.
Okay.
And then this is the way it looks now.
Yeah, it also, I mean, I'm definitely not as much of a Snapchat guy, but the Twin Strokes screams sepia filter to me, so there's that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So behind Windshank, another, that's fine. And another sublimate, we had this in the last one as well, the white light kind of blasting through or around or sublimating this other character's shoulder. Very cool.
Yeah.
There's the Swift Escape, so that is the secondary art or the zoomed in version of the art that we saw earlier with the character we were referring to reminding me of Sokka. Lightning Conduit.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Okay.
I love the way that they've depicted the lightning in this piece of art,
Gorgeous.
especially this up here.
Okay.
Very, very, very realistic depiction of bolt lightning.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is almost closer to like a ball lightning.
Well, and again, it's a lightning conduit. Before I read the flavor text, it seems to me that the lightning coming from the sky is supposed to be actual lightning, and this mage is catching that lightning in one hand and then redirecting or releasing it with the other, presumably at some type of a target or an enemy. And it says...
So this is kind of like the natural lightning, and this is the sort of magical lightning.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
So it says, the best mage leaves little time for either. Said by Mira Stormspear. So I'm curious to see if Mira Stormspear is our Cosmic Mage character for if and when, well, not if, for when we get to that deck to review it. Very, very cool.
This is
I like
gorgeous. And I love, like, because of the starkness of this, you know, and then this is a little bit more blended, and then this light down here is even more blended. It really, I think, helps convey that that point that you just brought up, that this is sort of natural lightning, and again, a conduit is sort of magically reinterpreting that lightning here.
Sure.
And then there's sort of a magical energy backlash that's sort of happening down here.
Yeah.
Very, very well done.
Yeah, I like that. Ooh, Mirrored Edge.
That's gorgeous, too.
This is an arcane light physical attack. That's cool.
Yeah, they did a great job of making this art look particularly gothic in style.
Okay.
It very much reminds me of, like, the Disney movie Sleeping Beauty.
Okay.
Which, I mean, one of the main things that they boast about that movie is that they really sort of changed their art style for that movie to make it feel like medieval art. And I think that they sort of did a bit more of a realistic version of that here. So it's got the medieval art flavor, but medieval art was very sort of two-dimensional. A bit cartoony almost, because there wasn't a lot of education back then in terms of art, and realism wasn't really the focus. Religion was.
Okay.
So, but this gives like a realism to a medieval style for me. So I like this a lot.
Nice. So yeah, I mean, and it's interesting. It's very symmetrical, despite the fact that it's two drastically different characters. But between their swords touching and where their arms are positioned and etc., it almost looks like it's the top of the start of a star, just because of how in sync they both are in terms of their attacks and how symmetrical they are. Exactly, just goes up and down like that. It just looks like you could continue it to be a star. Something fell, don't worry about it, not a big deal. something in the background.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. It looks like a perfect star there, and we just need something to kind of finish it off down here.
Yeah. But that's what it evokes for me. I like that a lot.
Very cool. Very cool.
All right.
I will say the contrast in this isn't what I typically say is great.
I was going to say that.
But I like it here, and I'll tell you why.
Sure.
They're in a forest.
Okay.
So the absence of light here would make you see things this way. The shadows are not particularly dark, and the highlights are not particularly light. Colors are very washed out. So it gives it a realism because it makes you feel like you're in that forest.
Absolutely.
You're seeing things the way you would if you actually had that cover of the leaves. Yeah, of sort of, and it almost looks like it's dusk.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah, or twilight
is,
time or whatever.
Right, like the sun has just gone down, so the sky is still light, but it's night now.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay, so now we are up to the items. So this is back to the cards that are specific to the Death Pirate deck. So this is the Heirloom Rapier, which again, based on like family protection, right, that we saw earlier, this makes perfect sense. And we've seen this sword in the other arts lit up blue, right, with light, similar to the glow that you get from the spirits. So it makes sense that this is an Heirloom Rapier. It indicates... to me, past and those familial characters, but also spirit-based characters. So I like that a lot. That this is Rose's weapon.
I don't know. Some of the other depictions kind of show the sword looking much wider than a rapier, but that might just be because of that that glow of the magic coming off of it.
Yeah, I think
see,
that's
in a picture like this, it looks like a broadsword. But again, it's emanating enough light where you could say that it is the same weapon. It's just, coming off away from it, making it look much wider.
Right, and maybe that's utilitarian as well, that it's bigger like that.
Yeah.
Also, I will note, we missed this yesterday because we like kind of did the items or the weapons or whatever early on, and so we didn't as much look at the flavor text on those weapons.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of important to do that. So the flavor text here says, a keepsake of the Alvarez bloodline, this rapier's edge reflects the faces of the dead. So there you go.
Cool.
It seems that, at least I'm somewhat confident now to say that this rapier may indeed be the thing that resummons those dead either family members and or the ship that we saw and stuff like that. And that makes sense because in the art where we saw, I think it was Redcoat's Revenge was the card. In the art where we saw her bringing back that ship and where that ship was shooting, she had her sword hand in the air.
Yeah.
And so maybe that is because she was summoning. Yeah. Maybe that's because that's what she's using to summon that ship to do that.
Sure. That's an interesting thought for sure.
Yeah, I like that.
I'll say that it's sort of, I don't know, like this background here is sort of interesting.
It's weird, yeah.
Yeah. This kind of looks like skulls.
Okay. Makes sense.
So I think this is sort of symbolic, this background, to like, to kind of clue you in that this sword is what summons them, but they didn't make it look like it.
Okay.
Because that's not what the sword's doing right now.
Okay.
But this background kind of looks like waves, but also kind of looks a little bit like a Celtic mandala or like a Celtic knot a little bit. Again, to kind of convey this sort of European feel. Again, the rapier definitely does that. The epaulets. In this particular picture, I think the epaulets convey more of a Persian or Egyptian sort of feel, but in a lot of the other pictures they didn't.
Sure.
But yeah, and obviously we've seen this art because it's the same as the front cover here. And it makes perfect sense for her to have a rapier because that is the style of weapon that they would have had.
Sure. Then we have Dread Captain's... Yeah. Is it chapeau? I do not know how to pronounce that word.
I don't know.
I assume, based on my very, very limited and horrible knowledge of French, that would be chapeau.
Same.
Would be the correct way to pronounce that, but I couldn't. Again,
Leave it
just
in the
because
comments.
just because I know the word chateau,
Yeah.
right, is just the same word but with the P changed to a T.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say that's chapeau. But if you know how to phonetically spell it out for me in the comments, if it's not that, I would appreciate that. That would be cool. Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna. Well, let's see if the. Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be her hat, right? So the flavor text says a flamboyant cap with a dastardly feather. This chapeau belonged to an infamous pirate. And again, it's showing off her face here, right? The kind of portion skeletal face. I guess it's interesting because like Amy showed you, right? It's two pieces to the same art on those two weapons, but it was seemingly somewhat purposeful that the hat is what's showing the face. I mean, obviously it makes sense. The hat goes on the head where the face is.
Right.
I get that. But it leads me to say that maybe it's the hat that causes that on her face.
Oh. Okay.
Because it says a flamboyant cap with a dastardly feather. Like, why would a feather be dastardly?
It really wouldn't, especially since having a feather in these specific style of hats was very, very, very widely done. I mean, it was basically the way these hats were worn. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I say that's why it leads me to believe that. I could be way off.
And it
base.
does use the word infamous.
Yeah.
But the infamous kind of makes me think again about this sort of golden rim on the brim of this hat and sort of how abnormal that would be on a hat like this.
Sure.
And so maybe that the person who wore this hat originally was very affluent. And if it was a pirate, it was probably not the most savory person. So
yeah, but if they were a pirate, maybe they're infamous because they received a large amount of treasure and were able to then, kind of lavishly spend on something like a hat.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense.
Or maybe they're just amazing enough to have been able to find someone or traveled enough to have been able to find someone who would gild their hat.
That's what I mean, that they would be able to spend on it. Oh, you meant just purchase it outright.
No, I meant like they have enough culture.
Oh, I see.
And they've traversed enough areas to be aware of a location where they could actually go and obtain this sort of a technique on their hat that is abnormal.
So you're trying to say that not every haberdashery would just gild your hat like that.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
All right. So what else do we have? I think there's one more item usually.
Okay.
Yes. So here, very good. So now we have the ship. This is the Redemption. Okay, so I assume that's the name of the ship, which actually makes sense because it is a ship that has seemingly returned from the dead. I will say, interesting. Amy, I'll put you a bit on the spot because I don't know how to feel about it necessarily. How do you feel about the fact that this is the exact art from Redcoat's Revenge, just with her photoshopped over the top in Redcoat's Revenge, or her removed for the Redemption art?
I will say I don't hate it, and here's why. when I look at that other art, it doesn't feel to me that she's photoshopped in.
Right, I
It doesn't
agree.
feel like these are two separate pictures, because all of the highlights, light sources, reflections that are on her are either coming from this light source, which we haven't really determined what that is, or the light coming off of the ship.
Sure.
All of this light that's on her pants, the light that is on this blue light that's reflected on her coat, her belt, her whole arm is encompassed in this blue-green light.
Yeah.
Even the reflections on her sleeve over here and on her face, this sort of swooshing in the air of her sword. And maybe that's just coming off of her sword. Maybe these aspects of that blue light are supposed to be coming from her sword itself. But regardless, they did a great job of making this aspect of this picture be a full picture.
Right, look like it belonged.
Right,
Absolutely.
right.
Okay.
And I actually like that we're getting to see the background of that picture a bit better, because that one's so chaotic. There's so much in it, so much going on, that now we really get to see the aspects of this ship that we didn't get to see before.
I also like, we're not talking a lot about the mechanics in this one. Again, feel free to check the description down below to fully learn how to play the game, if that is something that you're unaware of how to do. Obviously, also in the description, if you're interested in buying these decks, the link to that is down there as well. But I like just the fact that the first line on this card in the rules text area says the redemption cannot be ruined. Because ruined implies like the breaking of an item or a weapon or whatever. This is a spiritual ship. So you can't ruin a spiritual ship. It wouldn't be able to be destroyed in the same way that her hat or her sword would.
Well, also, arguably, it is a ruin.
Okay. Well, we don't know what happened to this ship, but yeah, I guess presumably for it to be ghostly or spirit-based in nature, it would have to no longer be intact wherever, somewhere else. So that makes sense.
And that would also lead you to believe that it's so old, that it would be broken down in some way. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, what else? So that, I believe, is the end of the items. It is. So now we have the tokens. So here's the Twin Strokes token, and as we learned, if you turn it over, there is also the Combat Reflexes token, which...
Okay. So this is the same art.
It's the same arts from the cards themselves.
Right.
It's just that those cards say, create a token of whatever.
So this is a slightly... I don't know, I guess it's not even zoomed in, but this is the same art as
the Twin Strokes.
On the Twin Strokes card, and then when you flip it over, this is a zoomed in area of that same art. Yes.
Yeah, but Combat Reflexes, the interesting part of Combat Reflexes to me is that, so yes, you're absolutely right. This is that, but different, but we saw the actual Combat Reflexes card in the Assassin deck.
Oh.
The Combat Reflexes card isn't in this deck.
Oh.
So that's interesting to me. Maybe that's that Combat Reflexes token that you're holding, even though it is included in this deck, maybe it's just there to supplement some of the other decks that you might be playing against, where like if your opponent's like, oh, I already played a Combat Reflexes, I don't have any more tokens, you could say, well, here, use mine for now or whatever.
Or maybe we were assuming a bit too much when we looked at the Assassins deck and we said, well, these characters don't so much look like Assassins, they look like characters that might show up again in other decks. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe the picture for Combat Reflexes here is this picture as opposed to the same one that we saw in the Shadow Assassins deck, because perhaps these cards in the pirate deck are only the characters that are associated with the pirate lore. And the Shadow Assassin lore, the only characters that you see in there are associated with that. despite the fact that, we mentioned the Roman soldier in that one. It kind of seems to me like they're sort of mixing all of these different sort of time periods and cultures together, and maybe they really are doing it that much. Maybe they really do have a shadow assassin snake fighting a Roman soldier, and that's specific to that deck.
Okay.
And what we see in this deck is what's specific to the pirate lore in this game.
Okay.
I think that would be fascinating.
Very interesting. I would not have thought that, and I don't know that I fully buy it, but I absolutely respect the opinion and the thought and the possibility.
Well, we'll see as we keep going.
Exactly, yeah. Who knows? So behind that, then we have the stack cards. So obviously more of that charmed art that we love to see, because it was very good.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And combined with Unbeatable, which is absolutely the Divine Paladin.
Yeah.
Depicted on that art.
Right, the one that's over here.
Yeah,
Our little Divine Paladin deck here.
Yep.
Sorry, guys.
Like I said, we looked at it last time. We'll get to the Divine Paladin opening at some point soon in the future. And what we didn't do last time, which we should have done, and I didn't realize it until after we were done, flip that card over, Amy, to the back. Upside down. So, again, this is the same stack cards as were in the Shadow Assassin deck. And again, we don't have either of these cards.
Oh, sorry.
In this deck itself.
Correct.
But maybe
these arts are the same as the same two, stacked card from the Assassin deck.
Right. And so from the Assassin deck, we had kind of two other stack cards to show cards from the Assassin deck. And again, we apologize that we did not know that that was there, but we should have. So that is that stack card. And then the only thing that I will say about
so this area here is part of those hills in that one picture with the prayer card.
Oh, okay. Enza's.
Enza, yes. The Enza's prayer card.
Enza's prayer.
So this is... Can you guys see that? So these sort of hills of skeletons, that's also what's being closely depicted there.
That's a very astute observation. I would not have noticed that. That's really good. And so then the only other thing I'll mention here in terms of this last card is if you look, it is... this is the die that the dice that we were talking about that you could put together off of this card. And the only thing I'll mention with this, because we kind of talked about our opinions on it and what we thought of that. I mean, that you could download an app, or hopefully you just have some D6s or D4s, or if you don't, there's definitely a number of cheap ways to get them out there. If you don't want to kind of bling them out, so to speak, because of course there's very expensive ways to get them too. But what you can do with this, or what I think is interesting, is these are different colors. In the Shadow Assassin deck, it wasn't purple. The purple is for this Death Pirate deck because that's the deck's color identity.
Yeah, if you look at the back of the box,
exactly,
it's purple.
Right, and we were talking about that with the difficulty and etc. So that's really, really cool.
And the borders on a lot of these cards have that sort of purplish color.
Absolutely. So that's really cool that even though it's something where, Amy and I kind of not, we were talking about like not really fully understanding if it would work the way that we would want it to, or that you would want it to.
Yeah, like it might be slightly weighted because you couldn't fold it just right, or you couldn't adhere it in such a way that it wouldn't be bumpier on one side or whatever.
But it's still cool that, this is just the kind of thing where they're like, listen, we'd like you to be able to just open the box and play and not necessarily need anything more than just a surface to play on.
Right.
So we want to give you the dice as well. It's nice.
They want to keep you from needing prerequisites to play this game,
Right. But it's nice that they were able to still customize it and make it unique to each of the decks.
Yeah.
Even though it's just something that they put in there to try to make sure that everybody was on a kind of an even footing or even playing field. So I like that quite a bit. So Amy, overall, what did you think of the Death Pirate deck?
We didn't point out what's on the back of this card.
Okay.
Kind of the Guildhouse Games company information, I guess.
Yeah, it's also what's on the back of this bifold that comes with the box.
Okay.
Or with the decks, but with different arts. But again, depicting the main characters from the decks themselves. So yeah, I mean, obviously, indicating what it talks about here. If you're interested in learning more about Varia and Guildhouse Games, yeah, you can check out their website. You can go down into the description box of this video for the easiest way to do that. Again, if you are interested in buying this product, go check out that website.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Just you check out their website and you will find out information on how to purchase these, and you can find out with the other link in the description how to learn how to play this game.
There you go. I was just going to mention about these arts that are on the backs of these here. They're interesting because they're less zoomed out than the arts that are on the decks themselves. So you get to see more of the art.
You mean less zoomed in?
Yes. So you're getting to see what's actually above his hat.
Sure.
On the 6-blade deck. You're getting to see that these little sort of spike out things that they sort of do as a little bit of an extra flair. You're getting to see those on this, and you're getting to see his whole axe on this. You're getting to see the whole moon here behind the assassin. You're getting to see the whole sun behind the Divine Paladin.
That's right.
Which you couldn't even see at all in the Divine Paladin art on the deck. You're getting to see this
symbol underneath the monk.
Yeah, it's like some kind of a stool or something that the monk is standing on. Yeah, it's kind of cool that we're getting to see more of the art here.
Yeah, and I like the fact that combined the bifold and the back of the dice card allows you to that they're all different characters, and there's you're only missing, and I say missing, the Death Pirate is the only one that's not on those, so it's very purposefully done where you get to see the other 6 characters.
Right, like, hey, enjoy these other decks too. I know you bought the pirate, but these also exist.
Which is really good marketing.
Of course.
So that is going to be the end of this particular video. I really do hope that everybody enjoyed. Please let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Amy, overall, what did you think of this deck?
I thought it was great. I will say I am appreciative of the fact...
Sorry, just maybe put the box back up front so everybody can see what we're talking about.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Sorry, guys. But yeah, I mean... this one in particular, I was very happy with this. I'm kind of happy that I didn't pick the Shadow Assassin and you did, and because I thought this was a great one. I really did.
Yeah.
The Shadow Assassin is great too, though.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed them both so far. I don't think, again, we haven't really talked about mechanics, so I can't really say whether one feels stronger than the other. I felt like there was a lot more to glean from the Shadow Assassin in terms of lore.
Really?
Well, I don't know. Like,
I felt the opposite.
So, to me, I guess the idea of the Shadow Assassin being a snake-type person, and I guess, I don't know, that there was a lot more mystery, whereas I feel like, so maybe I misspoke. I felt like there was a lot more mystery and intrigue to the Shadow Assassin.
Okay.
Whereas I feel like I know a lot more about the Death Pirate, although it's all speculation, right? So it's definitely possible that we could be just straight wrong, and we're just like sitting here being like, well, we think it's this and this and this, and now I'm going, well, we know everything about the Death Pirate, and we're just so far off, you know? So yeah, I don't know. That's how I feel about it, and I'm curious to see if we get more clarification in the future through learning more from this game.
Yeah, and learning more about these other decks and maybe how they sort of play into the other ones a little bit.
Right.
Because maybe the lore isn't what I recently referenced about it. Maybe it is not very deck specific. Maybe it's very game specific. So maybe it really incorporates each of these different characters, and we can kind of see that puzzle create itself as we open more of these decks. And I think that would be very interesting. Yeah,
because then you hopefully find out that it's like an overarching world and it's all interconnected and stuff. Yeah. That would be really cool. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. As I said, this was our second of 7. So definitely stay tuned to the channel. Please feel free to subscribe. If you are unaware of who we are, if you have come here as a fan of Varia first, we are Geek for All.
And we appreciate having you.
Yes, as always, please feel free to stay around. Again, subscribing down below. You can ring the bell for notifications to find out when all the rest of these Varia videos come out, as well as all of our videos. This channel itself typically has mostly Magic the Gathering content, like 99.9% Magic the Gathering content, but we are more than happy to have done this to check out a new CCG.
Yeah.
We were reached out to by Guildhouse Games, so thank you to them
Very
for that.
appreciative.
Yeah, and hopefully we are giving our honest opinions and trying our best to figure this stuff out. These mysteries of these characters and this lore and these decks. And we hope to do a lot more with this stuff. That's kind of, it's intriguing enough to us, obviously, because we've been sitting here talking for so long about it.
Yes.
So if you want to find out more about us, you can also check the description for that. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, etc. And you can check out
other channels.
Our other channels and our other series as well. We would appreciate that. But for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.